So in modern video games, there's a trend now to where the developers tend to give a lot of the narrative control to the player, and there's sort of two camps that then are divided between either playing as a physically named character, like a story named character, or as your own creator character. Now, there is obviously arguments for both. However, sometimes it doesn't always work given what they're trying to achieve. For the main example that I know that Matt's very interested in talking about because he does not like this game is Neo and Neo 2. Now, I've only
No,
just played. No, sorry, I've misrepresented you. You
you
like this
have.
game.
You have completely misrepresented me, mister. Um,
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dad.
no, yeah, it's just interesting for me because Neo obviously had the named protagonist, William Adams, and Neo
Historical
2,
figure.
historical figure, yes, the white samurai, great dude, I hear. Um, the second one was choose your own character.
It was just Guy
Yeah, it was just all girl. You could be girl.
or
Uh,
girl.
and it was interesting because I had heard on the grapevine, and I don't know if I can actually mention names or anything, but actually one of the biggest pieces of feedback that Koei Tecmo got from the first one was I wanted to create my own character. And I was like, well, all those people are fucking idiots, to be honest, because
They've been spoiled by the Dark Souls.
the named
Yeah.
character really worked for Neo, you know. It really, really worked for it. It gave the protagonist, because the thing is, when you create a character, when the developer creates the character, they know what character it is that is in the game. They know who every single person who plays the game is controlling. It is William Adams. And that allows them to do things. It allows them to give the character a bit more personality. It allows them to actually draw a character arc for them. Whereas if you do the create the character route, then that character has to be an avatar. You can't put a personality onto it as a developer or as a writer, because the minute you do that, if the personality doesn't match up with the character that somebody's created, they're going to get pissed off with it. So the create the character thing works fine for example for MMOs, where the whole thing is just literally about putting your avatar into the world and allowing yourself to kind of interact with the world as yourself through this avatar, or as a troll, as most people do through their avatar. Um,
I'm gonna have
but
my nerdy English teacher moment here, and I'm curious about the kinds of protagonists that you look at, because in even in fiction, there's the protagonist that has a lot of character and personality, and then there's also the kind of not really that significant protagonist that's just there to witness everything, but is meant to be the author avatar. Do you think these narratives would
Call
work
me
if you just
Ishmael. Yeah.
if you have the player created character be the avatar and just make the other characters more interesting?
yeah, I'm certainly not suggesting that that can't be a way that you go about things, but the difference is that in a video game, the protagonist really is the constant element throughout the whole thing, right? And they're the thing that you're spending most of your time playing, observing, because you're interacting with the world through this character. So they're
Hmm.
much more important to the game than kind of the backseat kind of protagonist that you're talking about in fiction. Um, because in those cases in fiction, what they're observing is the thing that we as the reader are observing. Whereas with video games, what we're observing is still that avatar.
That's true. Yeah, we're always observing them because we made them, so we want to look at them.
Yeah, exactly. So,
There's that sort
uh,
of pride that you get for it as well,
yeah,
where it's
exactly.
it's you and you want you to look cool.
Well, that's the thing, and that's why I was saying you can't then give that character a personality, because if you allow people to create their avatar that they experience this world through, then you have to give them a very blank personality so people can put their own personality on the top as well. When most people create characters in avatars, or when most people create avatars in games, they try to create themselves. And that is why, for many years, there was a lot of people that really, from kind of minority communities, that were really pushing to make sure that they were represented in the games as well. that they had the hairstyles, for the African American characters, that they had, the skin color tones and options, and that you could play as a woman rather than just, a male character. Because earlier games that had kind of character creators often had only male character creators. So there was a lot of push to make sure that there was diversity there, because people wanted to create an avatar in their own likeness, which is, great in a sense, but then you can't give that character a personality because you as the game developer don't know the person that has created the character. And certainly
it's that whole thing of write what you know, but how can you write what you're knowing when you don't know who you're writing for?
Exactly. And it would be very strange if, for example, let's take Neo as an example. The main character of Neo is a white male character, and that is important to the narrative and all of that. It doesn't work the same way if the character you create is not a white male character. If you tried to put that exact personality of the William Wallace from Neo 1 into a random character with green hair and twin tails and as a woman in Neo 2,
that is the most Matt character I've ever heard in my life.
That is my Neo 2 character. It's a
a
woman.
It's just Hatsune Miku.
It's just Miku, yeah.
It's just Hatsune Miku. So you can't.
And she loves dancing and she loves singing.
I think I did pick like the fastest character class, the nimble one. So, but anyway, point is, William Wallace doesn't work as Hatsune Miku.
What a statement to make! That's so brave. That's
a real takeaway from
that.
This
That is a digitally uploaded, only ever on this podcast comment.
Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying, right? Like,
yeah, no, it makes sense. I'm still just gonna make fun of you for it though, because it's very funny.
You need to have both. You need to be able to let players express themselves in some sense, but you need to also be able to force someone to play as somebody that they're not, right? You need to be able to force someone to play as a female character or a person of color and show what the world would look like through those eyes.
I think it's really like, for example, Deathloop, which I've only played.
Great game. It's good.
I've only played very briefly, but I really like Deathloop because it forced me to play as a black character. I think that's a really good thing. Like you say, it's really useful. And it's really important with video games being an art form that developers or creators use that as an opportunity to put people in positions that are not them, to take themselves out of themselves, and put them in a position of somebody else. For Spoken, which I'm sure I'll play, the Square Enix one.
Let me get this straight.
But it's a game that I am not a fan of at this stage, but I will play it and I'll give it a fair run. And if it happens to be good, then great. That means I get to play as a player of color, a person of color that is also a woman, which is again a good opportunity, a creative opportunity to put you in shoes of somebody that's not you. So I think that being able to, as a game developer, being able to do that is really, really valuable. And that's why
one Assassin's Creed that you really liked, right, Matt?
With Liberation, with Aveline.
Yeah, I love Aveline. She's so cool. And she's a good example, another person of color who's also a woman that is definitely not me. It's kind of, I'm the pastiest white male there is. So it's quite a distance between who I am and that character, and being able to be put in that character's shoes was a really, really good thing. So that is why I'm a big fan of developers doing this. And I don't like the increasing trend, as we saw with Neo to Neo 2, that the default is the other way. It's like the idea is I want to play the game as me, and that is kind of, that is all I want. So
I think the only game to actually do character creation correct, and by correct, this is obviously very biased. I think the only one to actually do it correctly is Saints Row, like the Saints Row the Third, Saints Row 2, Saints Row 4, because it is so clear that it is a silly tone game that, of course, the game where you're going to floss on a civilian's dead body after you choke slammed them into a wall is going to have a silly main character who's really aggressive and full on. Of course. And it doesn't matter how you interpret that character. At the end of the day, they're still a freak. And you got to roll with that. And that's kind of why that game succeeds, because it doesn't matter if you pick the generic voice 1, voice 2, voice 3. At the end of the day, they're all still doing the same thing, but in a different, slightly different personality style. And that's kind of neat.
I think my Saints Row 4 character I made have green hair and purple clothes with mixed with like the green's like lime green, has various scars on its face. I think was a male or a female, I can't remember, but the voice was the other way around. So I think it was a male but with a female voice. I played the game for like 5 seconds. And then so yes, the character creation was great. The game was shit.
That's a really
I could not disagree
relatable
with you.
relatable situation is to spend a bunch of time in character creation and then start the game and be like, oh, this isn't that good.
Saints Row 4 is really good though. Saints Row 3 is also really, really good. Saints Row 2 is also really, really good. But yeah,
Well,
I think that
hate
game's
these character creation games where there's some kind of like push that it is an avatar, and then it's like, well, what the hell do I make my thing? Because like you're like, well, you know, how do I make my character? How do I make myself? Kind of thing. It's like,
Well,
I
you
don't
just
really
make
want
a
to do
freak
that.
and it's fine.
I think
Yeah.
a really good example of a game that actually uses the character creation thing in a way that actually enhances the narrative is the From Software Souls games, pretty much all
Because
of
you're a
them.
nameless freak.
and Elden Ring, where you play as, you know, a pilgrim. Basically, you play as a journey person, and it doesn't matter who you are. Like it kind of doesn't matter. You're just this kind of withered husk of a shell of a thing, and that is part of the narrative of those games. So they're actually written into it in a way that the character creation thing actually makes sense. It's actually part of the narrative. So when you think about it in that way, then that's great. What I don't like is when they just default to it because that is what people want. It's like that doesn't work well for me.
I can't think of an example of a game that actually does this properly, but wouldn't it be interesting to have character creation be a narrative tool to make the game's events feel like they're happening directly to you because you see them happening to an avatar that looks a lot like yourself? I guess maybe this is the draw of having an avatar that looks like yourself, isn't it?
Well, that's
So the issue is then is that I don't have the time or the interest in making an avatar that looks like myself. I want to make a fucked up looking guy with like a bee face.
That's
You don't-
point.
That's
It's
not why
you
I
have
make
full
these.
serious cutscene, and then your character's just got like half bald, half like strange.
Yeah, so with the
hairstyle,
monk
strange
haircut.
colours.
Yeah.
Beard down to
I
the
must
floor.
admit, I like how like all these character creation things now have 3 billion different options. Like you can adjust the width of one nostril and not the other and stuff if you want to. I never bother with any of that. I just basically pick a female character, the twin tails, and green hair if possible, and that's basically what I do every single time. That's my
And
character
the entire
creation person.
world was not surprised.
I always
Actually,
called them
curious
Hatsune
now.
Miku.
Because Matt, you just answered this, but Trent and Alan, do you try to create yourself, or do you try to create someone that you would like to look at?
No, because I don't give a shit. Like, I honestly, if I'm playing a video game, I'm not looking at the visuals. I'm playing the video game. If I want to make an idiot-looking character, I'm default model number 1, or I am the worst hate crime I can possibly make towards humanity.
It's just
Like, just
every choice is the worst one.
Yeah, expand both their chin and then decrease their cheeks so it becomes like a squished bottle. Fuck it.
See,
who cares?
my issue is when I play games, I try and like make it somewhat my personality, even if it's not directly. Like if it's like a female, which is like a giant orc or something, like it's still like, what would if I was this, what would I then look like? If that makes sense. So I'm like, okay, well, green's my favorite color, so it has to have green undertones, and
I'm now trying to imagine what you would look like as a female orc, Trent.
But
So,
you know,
I'm actually
and then
going
there's
through.
all
I'm
this
going through the process
anxiety
now.
over like, you know, creating the character, because I'm like, well, you know, yes, if I'm doing different things, which I'm not, but I still need to make it enough that it's me. And then it's like, and then I really hate games like Final Fantasy, that online one. I probably only played it for like half an hour and then gave it up. And that was just basically the character creation, because I'm like, what class do I pick? Why do I have to pick a class? And then what skills do I want? Do I want this? Do I want that? And then I just gave up.
Yeah,
See-
Final Fantasy 14 was hard because everyone's too beautiful. So I was like, none of these are me.
Oh, Harvard.
Oh, Harvard, that's so,
Sorry, that was a very
that's-
sad take.
That's so sad.
It was meant to be a compliment on the beauty of all the characters of Final Fantasy 14. Just went a
When it came
different
across as a
direction there.
massive shit on yourself. And that's very sad. Oh.
I'm worried about you
That's
now,
why I got
Harv.
girlfriends.
Yeah,
People should,
I'm
so
concerned.
she
You're
shits
going
on
to
me,
talk
not
about this
me.
after the podcast.
Didn't mean it to come out that way.
And that's how I
like-
say it after making every single character creation character as well. Oh, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean for it to come out that way. Jesus Christ, why are their eyes coming out of its pecs?
Do you know what? I did that once. I was in an MMO. I was like, I'll make the silliest character I can. And someone walked by and just commented, wow, what an ugly character, and walked away. And I just felt bad on behalf of my
That's hurt.
protagonist that I never did it again.
That's a hate
Oh.
crime.
Make feet really big, make nipples really big, make feet webbed, and make the pecs really, really large. But then what are the bottom pecs? The
bottom pecs.
on
On your
arms.
ass?
Oh, your arms. No, you know how you got like the
What?
Bottom
thigh,
pecs on your
the
arms?
arm thigh, and then you have like the one which is underneath the arm thigh, which is like
Trent,
the leg.
I'm really sorry, but what the fuck are you talking about?
Are we
The
still on
bottom
orcs?
pecs?
No, the arms, not the pecs.
Bottom arms?
What, you know, so you've got the two muscles on your arms, and then you've got
Oh,
the elbow. Yeah.
Did you just use the word pec to refer to any muscle?
Yes.
Okay. This-
Oh,
okay.
sorry,
that makes
I
sense.
need to talk about my two upper legs. Oh, sorry, I meant my arms.
Moving on.
This is a video game podcast. And with that,
The funny thing, the thing that you said there, Harvard, that Final Fantasy 14 has two beautiful people in it. That's actually something I liked about that game. The character creator I had the most trouble with actually creating something was Cyberpunk, because
couldn't pick
there
between
are
penis A and penis B.
there are no beautiful people in Cyberpunk.
Yeah, it's very grungy. Like,
And
Yeah, I see what you mean.
that also kind of annoys. If you are going to do the character creation thing, then you need to also kind of allow people to create the thing they want. And with Cyberpunk, I know they were going for a certain aesthetic and stuff, but if you wanted to put a beautiful person in the world of Cyberpunk, you couldn't. So, you know, the kind of hedging a bit there with that character creation thing, but that confused the living hell out of me. That I was meant to have this freedom to create this character and whatever. I couldn't create the character I wanted to, or even close.
Miku
to.
not allowed.
Miku not allowed.
Yes.
There was no
the marketing. The marketing made it seem like it was like, you know, could do anything, and yet Matt couldn't make Miku.
I couldn't,
You couldn't
and that
launch
really
the
pissed
game,
me
to be
off.
fair.
Yeah, well, that was the other problem with it.
Mm.
You know, there was an
I-
there is an interesting example of perhaps a midway point between this, and that is Mass Effect, because in Mass Effect the characters are named, and they went to the effort of doing both male and female characters. But you did have the character creation that you could design how they looked, and I think that's a decent middle ground, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like a limited character creator, right? Like you can't go
A
off
fairly
the wall.
limited one, because you still need to make sure that the character is going to look like the personality, I guess, that you've got written into the game. But
Wasn't the Mass Effect character creation tool relatively regarded when it first came out?
was.
Or am I remembering?
no, it was considered pretty good.
But then
And-
technology marched on, and now you can micromanage every single follicle of your hair.
Yeah, so things have definitely changed. But I'm playing through Mass Effect, and again, by little bits and pieces, and definitely that one was a good example, I guess, of how you could have a named character and then a proper character personality in the game. And it changes, like the texture of the game changes whether you pick the male or the female, because they've got different voice actors and different performance styles. So that was a really neat thing. But you also had the character creator on top of that. So, but
I guess it's kind
yeah,
of like
not every developer has the resources of EA and BioWare back then.
Yeah.
you know, like top-down Fallout's another example where you don't create the look of your character, but you create the personality of your character, and the game reacts to what you do.
Ooh,
I guess if you have infinite resources, then you could do that for a visual style as well.
that's actually sorry, this is now a bit of a reminder thing, because I started playing Arcanum for the first time ever. And I don't know if you guys know what Arcanum is, but it's the It's the game made by the guys who made Fallout after Fallout was removed from them.
Oh, you're talking about that
it's-
top-down RPG,
Yeah, Arcanum of Magic and Steamworks Obscura.
that old
And-
one. Or-
Yeah, from
yeah, yeah,
2001.
yeah.
Yeah,
I know
it's
the game.
really, really bloody good. And it's one of the first times where I've actually felt like my character's background is directly influencing the story. And it's
just-
really interesting. I
I'm
would
just
heavily
surprised you
recommend
played the
everyone
game.
playing that.
I'm just surprised
Yeah.
you would play such a game, Alan.
No, I like those sorts of old games. I push through a lot of stupid gameplay stuff to play a story that's actually worthwhile playing, and I think Arcanum is worth it. So it's on sale on GOG constantly, and it runs
feel like
pretty
it's-
well. That
You're
also a mod
unfairly
pack you can get.
stereotyped as like the action liking person of this podcast.
Yeah,
That whenever you have like
I
a
like
thoughtful
nerd
take,
shit.
Matt's just like, wait, what? You
He
can do
actually
that?
I
like
feel like
stories?
in 20 years' time, when we're still doing the podcast, it's like old Alan's gonna be like, "Yeah, I found this like old game from like
I love how I become more
the-
Australian as I age.
the 2020s, and it's some sort of like lewd fan servicey game, but he likes it for like because it's old and has a good character creation tool or something. I don't know.
That's literally the article on DDNet that has the most readers is Matt going, we should play this adult H game because it has a good character creator.
I never said that we should play it. Let's be clear here, Harvard. I said it was interesting. It was interesting. It raises questions.
So, if you're listening to this and you want us to play this weird hentai game that Matt's talking about, give us a tweet. I'll do it. Pay me.
But actually, Harvard's right. That is
Alan
the
will
most
Twitch stream it.
the most
No,
read-
because I'll get banned. Please don't.
the,
I want to finish Xenoblade 3.
the most read article of all time on DDNet is actually that article on Honey Select. Yes,
That's
Which
very
is-
funny.
which
It's
is
been there
just
for like 5 years.
it is just a character creator, that game. Well, I say that it is a character creator, and then stuff happens to that character. But yeah, that's basically it. Has a really good character creator. It's like insane how much control you have over that character creation process. But there's not exactly a story behind that one after that.
Yeah. If there's no story, I guess you can make whoever you want. Is the
Yeah,
moral of
exactly.
this section.
I mean, look at Pokemon.
who gives a
you
shit?
could,
Yeah.
you could have a really, really complex character creator in Pokemon game and nobody would mind. That's fine.
I just want to learn more about the mum.
The mums are always terrible people.
Yeah, she lets a fucking
Wait, is
10-year-old
there
run off
a
into the
parent
abyss.
in this game?
Yeah,
Yeah,
she
there
shows
is,
up at the very beginning. Is there a
I
parent? You
realize
start off
now.
in your parents' house.
That's why you
Oh,
can't be an
yeah.
old man in Pokemon, is because you need to have like the same mother.
So, see, the thing is that like in a modern society, 30 to 40-year-olds are still commonly living at home, so it's fine.
Yeah, but that
The
would make
economy's hit us very hard.
And they're also got the social skills of like a 12-year-old as well. So it's realistic.
We're just back to Pokemon Amazon, Pokemon Apple now.
Yeah.
Pokemon Amazon,
Oh.
Pokemon Apple. That
And the mum's banging Professor Oak. We all know the storyline for Pokemon.
she never even checks in on you. She's
That's a
just
very
like,
good point. She's a horrible parent.
she's just like, off you go.
Yeah, fuck off.
Good
Susan,
riddance.
you bitch.
It's like, thank God, I got my house back. Don't care what
Yeah,
happens
now,
to
now I
you.
can pump
It's like-
whoever I want.
It's n-
You go back and she's got like a whole new family, new
doesn't even-
kids, and
like,
a
in
new
half-
partner.
in half the game, she doesn't even give you running shoes. Like in some of them, she
Because
does.
running is part of the game now, Matt. You don't
Some of
need
them-
to get running shoes.
Some of them she does. She's like, oh, here, don't forget your shoes. But other ones she doesn't. And she's like,
Or
she doesn't even care if you
the
got
like
shoes on.
partners, like the rivals, like parents do more for you than she does. Like, it's like, here's a map, here's some other
I
stuff. here's-
know. I
Let's
know.
create a
It's,
bit of mum.
it's like the worst parents ever.